Sometimes life pushes a person to such a crossroads where all that lies ahead is nothing but darkness. My name is Assad, and I come from a small town in Pakistan. My life had always been surrounded by hardships, but the night of despair written in my fate, perhaps even my worst enemy wouldn't deserve it. I came from a humble family. My father was often ill, and my mother spent her days managing the household chores. Poverty had taken permanent residence at our doorstep. Sometimes it was a lack of money, sometimes unemployment, and sometimes the absence of self-confidence that weakened me from within. Even after completing my education, I went through countless job interviews, only to face rejection again and again. Each refusal shattered my self-worth a little more. Every night I went to bed hoping that perhaps tomorrow would bring a better day, but each morning dawned with even more disappointment. Eventually I got married, but it was under pressure from the circumstances. My wife was a good woman, but my constant anger and the weight of our struggles began to affect her as well. Providing food and necessities for the little children, paying their school fees, and taking care of my ailing father, all of it was becoming too much for me to handle. I tried multiple times to find work in different cities. I even borrowed money from relatives and friends, but all efforts went in vain. One day, it reached a point where we didn't even have anything to eat at home. My wife's silent tears, the children's hunger, and my mother's helplessness, all of it was hollowing me out from the inside. One morning, I saw my wife sitting by the stove, dividing small pieces of bread among the children. Something inside me broke. I felt like I could no longer carry the burden of this family. My degree, my abilities. Everything felt meaningless. That day, I made a decision. I couldn't endure this torment any longer. I told myself, today is my last day. I decided to go to the canal, a canal whose current was so fierce that if someone fell into it, returning was impossible. I engraved the faces of my parents in my heart one last time. I remembered my children's innocent laughter, and my wife's tearful eyes flashed before me, but my inner strength had already faded. I put on my old shoes, dropped a few coins in my pocket, and silently walked out of the house. There was a strange chill in the air outside, as if the whole universe could feel the ache inside me. As I reached the canal, I stood at the edge of the bridge and gathered every sorrow I had experienced. I looked around. Usually there were police officers stationed there, but that day, perhaps fate had something else in store. It was a Sunday. Perhaps the police officers were resting somewhere or had gone off for tea. The bridge was completely deserted. I thought to myself, this is the perfect time. No one will come to save me today. I will make the final decision of my life myself. I closed my eyes and silently asked God for forgiveness, because I was about to end my own life. For a moment, it felt as if every sorrow, every tear, every regret was leaving my body and pouring into that flowing water. But fate had something else in store for me. Just as I grabbed the railing and tried to jump, someone suddenly grabbed my arm from behind and forcefully pulled me back. I fell backward with a jolt, tears streaming from my eyes. When I turned around, a young stranger stood before me, dressed in uniform, probably a police officer. His eyes reflected both anger and concern. He shook me by the shoulders and shouted, "What are you doing? Aren't you ashamed? You're making such a huge decision about your life, just like that? What about your parents, your wife, your children? What will happen to them after you?" Hearing his words, I broke down completely. I wiped my tears with trembling hands and replied in a tired voice, "Brother, what would you know of what poverty feels like? Have you ever seen your children go to bed hungry? I feel like I die a little more every day. Today, I just wanted it to be over." He went silent for a few moments, perhaps trying to absorb my pain. Then he gently patted my shoulder and said, "Look, brother, I understand what kind of torment you're going through. But Allah never lets sincere effort go to waste. If you truly have nothing left, let me show you a way forward." At first, I didn't believe him. I looked at him in disbelief. He pulled out his phone, made a call, and spoke for a few minutes. Then he turned back to me and said, "Just today, a friend called me from Saudi Arabia. There's a job opportunity there. I can arrange the visa and passport for you. Just promise me one thing, that you will never do something like this again." In that moment, I felt as if the broken dreams inside me had flickered back to life. Tears of hope filled my eyes. I grabbed his hand tightly and silently thanked Allah, who had shown me a new light even in the middle of my darkest night. With that hope in my heart, I returned home that day. I had no idea that this would be the beginning of a new and unexpected chapter, not just a change in my life, but a transformation of my destiny itself. For the first time in many days, I felt a glimmer of light within me. That young police officer had appeared in my life like an angel. Even then, I was unsure if what had happened was real or just my imagination. When I reached home, I was still shaken. My eyes were swollen from crying and my heart was exhausted, but the stranger's words kept echoing in my ears. Stay strong. Allah never abandons those who work hard. As I stepped through the door, my wife looked at me with questioning eyes. My children started to run toward me as if they could sense something inside their father had broken. My mother gently ran her hand over my head and I sat down silently, unable to meet anyone's gaze. My wife quietly placed a glass of water in front of me and softly asked, "What happened?" I stayed silent for a moment. Then, in a choked voice, I told her everything. The reason I went to the canal, how I had lost all strength, and then the encounter with the stranger and the offer he made. Silence fell over the room. Tears welled up in my wife's eyes. My mother immediately bowed down in prostration, thanking Allah that her son had been given a new lease on life. That very evening, the police officer called me again. He asked for my full name, ID card details, and academic documents. He assured me that he would handle all the arrangements for the visa and passport himself. And then he said one more thing. Just promise me, when you get that job and start earning, send me a little from your salary every month. Not for me, but so I can help others like you. I immediately agreed. In my heart, I prayed that Allah would also ease the life of that young man, just as he had changed mine. The next few days passed quickly. The police officer kept his promise. He submitted my documents, got my photographs taken, and even arranged the medical tests. Through it all, I felt like I was living in a dream. Every time I received an update like, "Your visa is being processed" or "Your passport is ready," my heart filled with gratitude. Happiness began to return to my family's faces. The children's mischief, my wife's smile, my mother's prayers, hope started to shine again. Finally, the day arrived when I was informed that my flight was scheduled for the following week. My heart was filled with both joy and fear. I had never even imagined leaving Pakistan. I had never seen an airplane up close, nor did I know any foreign language, but the hope of changing my life gave me inner strength. The police officer told me his friend in Saudi Arabia, who worked at a factory, was waiting for me. I bid farewell to my wife. She handed me a small Quran and softly said, "Keep this with you. It will protect you." My children clung to me, crying, saying, "Come back soon, Abba." My mother whispered her favorite prayer into my ears as a blessing. As I reached the airport, I felt an unfamiliar unease. My palms were sweaty. 1,000 thoughts ran through my mind. What will happen now? How will I live in a foreign country? What kind of people will I meet? How will I communicate? But then I remembered my mother's prayer, my wife's encouragement, and the stranger's hope. That brought me some comfort. I placed my trust in Allah and began the journey. On the flight, my heart pounded. As the plane took off, I closed my eyes and silently prayed, "Oh Allah, let this journey be successful. Let me never have to beg from anyone again." An old man sitting next to me noticed my trembling hands and smiled. "Is this your first time?" he asked. I nodded. He said, "May Allah make things easy for you. Just keep your intentions pure and never wrong anyone. In a foreign land, only hard work matters." His words sank deep into my heart. Arriving in Saudi Arabia felt like stepping into another world. The dazzling airport, the strict regulations, they intimidated me. But the police officer's friend was already waiting there. He picked me up and drove me straight to the factory. The first few days were challenging as I tried to understand everything. But slowly, I adapted to the new environment. My routine became simple. Go to the factory in the morning, return in the evening, rest in the room, and occasionally video call my family. Through it all, my heart overflowed with gratitude. Every night before sleeping, I thanked Allah for pulling me back from the edge of death and giving me another chance at life. But I didn't know then that my real test hadn't ended. It had just begun. Coming to Saudi Arabia felt like a dream, but hidden beneath that dream was a bitter and harsh reality. The scorching, sand-filled winds that hit me as I left the airport seemed to push me into a whole new world. The environment, the people, the language, everything was unfamiliar. The police officer's friend helped me a lot. He was a hardworking man who had been living there for many years. He let me stay in a small room he shared with 4 other Pakistani laborers. The room was extremely basic. Actually, it was quite harsh, but I consoled myself, believing that every beginning is difficult. When I started working at the factory, I realized life here was all about physical labor and endurance. Working for nearly 12 hours every day in the heat, drenched in sweat, wasn't easy. My hands started to blister, but thoughts of my family and the poverty back home gave me strength. I learned to accept every hardship as Allah's will. The first few weeks were a torment. I didn't know the language. The supervisor's harsh tone often broke my heart, but I kept telling myself maybe after a few months everything would be okay. My job involved cutting iron rods and sometimes operating heavy machinery. It was not only exhausting, but also dangerous. Many times my fingers got hurt, or sparks would land on my clothes. But I kept thinking of saving money to send back home. My wife's face, my children's laughter, my mother's prayers, these gave me the courage to bear everything. When I received my first salary, I sent half of it to my family in Pakistan. With the rest, I paid my room rent and bought food. For the first time, I heard hope in my wife's voice and joy in my mother's prayers. They told me things were getting better. Our children had started going to school again, and the home had begun to feel lively once more. In that moment, I felt as if all my hard work was paying off. I thanked Allah and silently prayed for the police officer and his friend. But fate, it seemed, wasn't done testing me yet. Just a few months later, the factory owner suddenly announced that several laborers were being laid off. Unfortunately, I was among them. My world plunged back into darkness. As I walked out of the factory gates, it felt like the ground beneath me had vanished. I had no job. I didn't have much money left. And staying in Saudi Arabia as a foreigner without work was extremely difficult. A wave of panic hit me. I couldn't even return to Pakistan. I didn't have enough money for a visa or ticket. Days went by when I survived on just bread and water. Sometimes a few of us would share one curry dish, dipping pieces of bread into it together. My body grew weaker, but I kept hiding the truth from my family. I always kept them reassured during video calls. Even if it was a lie, I never let them worry. Every night I prayed to Allah, Ya Rab, please make a way for me. Don't let my efforts go to waste. Then one day, something happened that changed my destiny forever. I was walking down a street with a few coins in my pocket and 100 thoughts in my mind. Suddenly, I accidentally bumped into a tall, commanding Arab man. He was holding glass bottles that shattered on the ground due to our collision. I panicked. In a country like this, upsetting a local can turn into a big problem. I quickly joined my hands and started apologizing, but the language barrier blocked me. I tried to speak Arabic but couldn't find the right words. All I could say was sorry, but forgive me. To my surprise, the Arab man looked at me intently and then began speaking to me in soft Urdu. I was stunned. With a smile, he said, "You're Pakistani, aren't you?" I nodded. He replied, "Masya, don't worry, I've been to Pakistan many times. I understand Urdu." His words calmed me down instantly. He then asked me what I was doing here and why I looked so worn out. For the first time, I poured my heart out to a stranger. I told him everything. The poverty in Pakistan, not finding a job, coming to Saudi Arabia, working in a factory, then being suddenly fired and now being unemployed and homeless. I told him the truth, every bit of it. He remained quiet for a moment, then smiled gently and said, "Allah never leaves anyone empty-handed. Come with me. Maybe I can help." I followed him. A new, unfamiliar hope stirred inside me. Maybe this time, fate was ready to favor me again. My life had once again reached a crossroads. Everything I had saved in Saudi Arabia was gone. I could no longer send money home regularly. In fact, I could barely feed myself. I had been thrown out of the factory, and after walking the city streets in search of a job, my shoes had worn thin. Many times, I went to small roadside restaurants asking if they needed someone to wash dishes or clean up, but the answer was always no. Sometimes people would stare at me as if I were a beggar. In a foreign land, being a stranger is a different kind of torture, especially when you don't know the language or have any connections. In the evenings, when there's nothing to eat, your mind stops working properly. A restlessness creeps in, followed by fear, then despair. One evening, I was lying on the roadside, using an old cloth as a pillow, staring at the stars above and wishing, if only a miracle could happen now. After all this struggle, my strength was finally starting to break. Every day, I would go to the mosque and beg Allah to ease my burden. These days, not only my body, but even my soul felt exhausted. One such morning, I wrapped myself in a thin sheet and walked toward a nearby hotel, hoping to find some kind of work. As I was walking down the street, suddenly, I saw that same Arab sheikh, the one I had accidentally bumped into a few days earlier. He recognized me. He walked over and greeted me with salam. I responded hesitantly. Then he asked me directly, "Have you found any work yet?" I shook my head in disappointment and explained my situation once again. My poverty, the loss of my job, and how I'd been wandering the streets ever since. The exhaustion on my face, the sadness in my eyes, and the worn-out clothes I wore, everything spoke louder than words. He listened intently and then fell silent. I thought maybe, like others, he'd just offer some sympathy and walk away. But what he said next shocked me. The sheikh was probably around 60 years old, but his eyes held a strange mix of seriousness and compassion. He said, "Listen, son, I too have a problem. My wife is severely ill and disabled. Both her legs no longer function. We don't have any children, and I spend most of my time outside. I need a sincere helper who can stay with her, care for her, and handle her needs." Over the past few years, many workers have come and gone. None have stayed. But in you, I see a kind of innocence and honesty that reminds me of a son. If you're willing, I can give you this job. I was stunned. In Saudi Arabia, in an Arab's home, to serve his wife? Not a hotel, not a factory, not a shop. My heart was filled with both fear and hope. I gathered my courage and asked, "What exactly would I have to do?" He smiled and said, "Just take care of my wife, prepare her food, give her medication, help her with her daily needs. While I'm away, stay by her side and treat her with respect. And in return, I'll give you a salary of 100,000 riyals a month." 100,000 riyals! I couldn't breathe. I touched my ears to make sure I'd heard him right. That amount was more than I'd ever dreamed of. Back in Pakistan, it translated into several lakh rupees. A wave of joy surged through me, but with it came an unfamiliar fear. Could this really be so simple? Could this be a trick? Could he have some hidden agenda? But the sheikh's face reflected sincerity and seriousness. Seeing my hesitation, he continued, "Son, I made this decision by listening to my heart. No one has ever treated my wife kindly. They've only stayed for their own benefit. But in you, I see softness and sincerity. Come to my home, meet my wife. If you feel comfortable, you can start the job." He asked me to get in his car. As I sat beside him, I kept silently thanking Allah, how beautifully my Lord had lit a lantern of hope in the darkest corner of my despair. My wife's and children's faces appeared before my eyes, and I could hear my mother's prayer echoing in my heart. Perhaps this was the answer to that very prayer. The sheikh's home was a large villa in one of the city's upscale areas. As I entered, I felt an eerie silence and a sense of loneliness. At the doorway was an old wheelchair. Inside, in a large room, sat a frail, white-haired woman. Her eyes looked empty but gentle. The sheikh introduced me, and she nodded in welcome. There was no pride or arrogance in her expression, only a quiet stillness and patience that spoke of years of suffering. I greeted her respectfully and in my heart made a promise. I will take care of this home as if it were my duty from Allah. The sheikh gave me a room in his home, offered a few important instructions, and emphasized that I must take special care of his wife's every need. It felt as though fate had opened new doors for me. A little while later, I called home in Pakistan to share the good news with my wife and mother. Their voices filled with an indescribable peace. From that moment, gratitude to Allah never left my lips. A new chapter of my life had begun. I began to see the sheikh's disabled wife as a mother figure. At that time, I had no idea that this act of service would one day change my destiny. The atmosphere in the sheikh's home felt unfamiliar at first, but I reminded myself of my need and my sincere intentions. It was a home filled with wealth, but also wrapped in silence and a strange kind of loneliness. The sheikh was usually away for business or travel, often gone for several days or returning late at night. The real inhabitant of the house now was his disabled wife, who had been confined to a single room for years due to paralysis in both legs. She must have been around 55 to 60 years old. She always wrapped her long hair in a white scarf, and her eyes carried a deep sadness. Yet there was neither the restlessness of the sick nor the arrogance of the rich on her face, only a calm patience, like a soft veil draped over her entire being. On the first day, she gave me a few clear instructions. Son, don't forget the time for my breakfast and medicine. If I need anything, I'll tell you. I don't like too much talking. Just do your work quietly and complete everything on time. In the first few days, I would clean her room, warm her food, give her medicine, and take her wheelchair out into the sunlight. In the evenings, when she would grow tired, I'd bring her a warm glass of milk. Her husband had also instructed me clearly. His wife must receive care, respect, and her medications on time. I committed myself fully to this duty. Every night, I would go to her door to say goodnight, and she would quietly reply, "Thank you, son. Go and rest now." A few days later, something unexpected happened. One night before I went to bed, she called out to me and said, "Son, take this glass. It has milk. I've added some olive oil to it. You look very weak. Drink this every night. It will help you regain your strength." At first, it felt a bit strange. I thought maybe it was some sort of cultural tradition or perhaps just a gesture of kindness. Still, I took the glass, sensing there was something special about it. The milk had a slight bitterness to it, but the aroma of olive oil was pleasant. The next night, she gave me the same milk again and said gently, "You've been through a lot of hunger and hardship. Your body has weakened. Olive oil is very good for the liver and overall health. Drink it. May Allah grant you healing." Days passed like this. It became a routine. Every night before bed, I would take the glass of milk from her hands and drink it. Slowly, I began to feel my strength return. My body grew stronger, the paleness in my face started to fade, and my sleep improved significantly. During this time, something changed in her demeanor, too. A quiet warmth began to emerge from her behavior. She still didn't talk much, but if I was ever late in completing a task, she would explain it kindly, never with anger. The sheikh gave me a room, shared a few essential instructions, and emphasized that I should take care of his wife with great attention. It felt as though fate had opened a new door in my life. A few moments later, I called Pakistan to give the good news to my wife and mother. I could hear peace returning to their voices. Gratitude to Allah became constant on my lips. A new chapter had begun. I began to see the disabled woman as my own mother. I didn't know then that this service, quiet and humble, would one day change the course of my destiny. At first, the sheikh's house felt unfamiliar, but I had a strong sense of purpose and sincerity. Though wealth was abundant in the home, it was filled with a strange silence and loneliness. The sheikh spent most of his time traveling or working, often gone for days or returning late. The true resident of the home was his disabled wife, who had been confined to a single room for years due to paralysis in both legs. She appeared to be in her late 50s or early 60s. Her long hair was wrapped in a white scarf, and her eyes held a quiet sorrow. Her face showed neither the anxiety of illness nor the pride of wealth, only a calm dignity wrapped in patience. On the first day, she gave me a few instructions. "Son, don't forget my breakfast and medicine times. If I need something, I'll tell you. I don't like too much talking. Just quietly do your duties and finish everything on time." In the early days, I cleaned her room, warmed her food, gave her medicine, and wheeled her into the courtyard to sit in the sun or cool shade. In the evenings, I'd bring her warm milk when she grew tired. The sheikh had also instructed me that his wife must receive rest, respect, and timely care. I gave my heart to this duty. Every night, I would greet her at her door, and she would softly reply, "Thank you, son. Now go and sleep." After some days, something unusual happened. One night before sleeping, she called me and said, "Son, take this glass. It's milk. I added olive oil to it. You've become too weak. Drink it every night. It will help restore your health." At first, I found it odd. I thought maybe it was some tradition or just a kind gesture. I accepted the glass, sensing there was something special about it. The milk had a slightly bitter taste, but the scent of olive oil made it comforting. The next night, she gave it again. "You've gone through hunger and hardship," she said. "Your body has weakened. Olive oil is a great blessing from Allah. It's good for the liver and the body. Drink it. May Allah heal you. Days passed like this. It became my nightly routine to receive the glass of milk from her hands and drink it. Slowly, I began to feel stronger. My body regained energy, the paleness on my face faded, and I started sleeping well. During this time, I also noticed a gentle affection developing in her behavior. She still didn't talk much, but if I was late in doing something, she would gently correct me, never with anger. She sometimes shared stories from her childhood, memories of the smell of soil from her village in Pakistan, her father, and her youth. But one thing always stood out: she didn't trust people easily. Still, my sincerity had softened her heart. On the other hand, the sheikh's behavior toward his wife was cold and distant. Perhaps time and circumstances had created a wall between them. She never spoke much about him. Occasionally, she would simply say, "In life, patience and gratitude are essential. Everything else is just a trial." As promised, I received my salary on time each month. Whenever I sent money home to my wife and parents in Pakistan, I could hear the joy in their voices, and tears would fill my eyes. By now, I no longer felt like a stranger in this home. A quiet bond of love and respect had formed between the woman and me. With time, I began to notice an old notebook that always lay near her. She would often read from it or write in it when she was particularly quiet or sad. The book seemed important, but I didn't understand its contents. Still, I could sense its significance. Life had now found a quiet, peaceful rhythm. I didn't realize that this very quiet service and that olive oil would one day bring a profound transformation in my life. My routine was simple yet unusual. I would wake early, do the household chores, prepare breakfast and medicine for the woman, and move her wheelchair between the courtyard and her room depending on the weather. Since the sheikh was often away, her care was entirely my responsibility. Every day, every moment, it felt like I was serving my own mother. My behavior with her became just like a devoted son's toward his helpless mother. She would mostly remain silent, sometimes asking for something, sometimes quietly observing. In her silence, I could sense hidden stories. Her room always carried a faint sadness and a strange scent, perhaps of olive oil or of years of silent suffering. The milk with olive oil had now become a nightly ritual. She would hand me the glass herself and say gently, "Son, your health is improving, right? Just keep drinking this olive oil. It's a great blessing from Allah. When I was young, my father used to give it to me every day." At first, I thought it was just a tradition. But as my strength returned, I began to believe her. Weeks passed and my face looked fresher, my weakness faded, and I no longer collapsed from fatigue despite the hard work. The healing properties of olive oil had seeped into my bones. Over time, I also noticed that her routine included reading from or writing in that thick old notebook. Whenever she felt deeply quiet or overwhelmed, she would open it. I often saw it while cleaning, but I never dared open it. One day, I carefully asked, "Amaji, what do you write in that book?" She smiled, and a strange light appeared in her eyes. "Son, this is a legacy from my father. He was a great physician. I learned traditional medicine from him. In my time, I used to write and prescribe herbal remedies too. After marriage, life took that from me. But in my solitude, this book remained my support." There was a bitter kind of pride in her voice, as if she had placed the most precious thing in her life aside and embraced patience instead. Sometimes, I would wonder how this woman, whom the world might see as helpless or even insane, was in fact deeply wise and knowledgeable. I could sense the fire within her, but I couldn't yet comprehend its depth. Then one day, everything changed, Tid. That night, as usual, she handed me the glass of milk and said, "Son, I'm not feeling well. Give me breakfast a little earlier in the morning, and if I don't wake up, call the sheikh immediately." There was a strange weariness and helplessness in her voice, something I had never heard before. I prayed for her and went to sleep. In the morning, when I entered her room, she was sitting silently in her usual place. I called out, no response. My heart skipped a beat. I moved closer and checked her pulse. She had passed away. My hands trembled, my eyes filled with tears. The room fell into an even deeper silence. I quickly called the sheikh, who summoned a doctor at once. The doctor said, "She passed during the night. May Allah forgive her. There were tears in the Sheikh's eyes too, though his face held the same composed expression as always. I was entrusted with her final rites. It felt like I was burying my own mother. I arranged her grave with great care. During this time, the Sheikh asked me to organize her belongings. Beneath her pillow, I found that same old notebook wrapped with a piece of paper. The Sheikh unfolded it. It was written in Urdu. Silently, I read the note. To the one who served me with sincerity and without expectation, I leave this knowledge as my inheritance. It is my father's legacy, remedies with olive oil, and hundreds of traditional cures. May Allah accept this as charity and allow this knowledge to continue. The Sheikh looked at me in astonishment and quietly said, "The woman I spent years thinking of as mad was, in fact, a wise and learned healer." Only then did I realize the olive oil she mixed in my nightly milk was not just kindness. It was part of her knowledge passed down from her father. It was her charity to me for serving her with devotion. That day changed everything in my life. Now I had not only her blessings, but also her knowledge, and a powerful lesson. True greatness comes from service, sincerity, and patience. The morning she passed away, her room felt suddenly empty and hollow. I sat beside her lifeless body, staring at her in silence. My heart ached with a strange blend of love and sorrow. Through serving her, I had come to feel a bond like that of a son and his mother. When the Sheikh called me, he too appeared broken. His wife had been a silent burden for years, but today even he couldn't contain his grief. He embraced me and said, "Son, may Allah accept your effort and service. You gave her final days dignity and peace." From the arrival of the doctor to the burial preparations, everything became my responsibility. I prepared her funeral with the utmost reverence. As I sorted through her things near her pillow, I uncovered another secret, the same thick notebook she used to read and write in. Inside it was a folded piece of paper. When the Sheikh read it, his face showed clear signs of shock and regret. The message read, "To the one who served me without greed, this is my knowledge, my prayer, and the inheritance of my father. I gave you olive oil each night because my father believed it was a treasure for both body and soul. The day you understand this secret, you'll realize that life becomes beautiful through service and wisdom." I held that paper in my hands and looked up toward the sky, praying for her soul. I felt a strange warmth and light enter my heart. For the first time in my life, I understood that a woman whom the world saw as helpless, silent, and maybe even mad, had such depth, knowledge, and wisdom that she silently passed it all to a stranger. The Sheikh was also shocked. He admitted that he had ignored his wife for years and never understood her pain. His heart was filled with remorse. My eyes welled with humility. He said to me, "She left this book for you. It is now your trust." I opened the book with great reverence. Inside, on hundreds of pages, were traditional herbal remedies, the uses of olive oil, healing methods for physical and spiritual ailments, and her personal experiences. Many pages also contain the wisdom and advice of her father. To conceal knowledge is a sin. To pass it on is a charity that never ends. As I read the book, I noticed several pages where she had written about me. One line struck me deeply. "Today, a young man is serving me. He carries sincerity in his soul, silence in his speech, and a fire within him that the world could not extinguish." Tears filled my eyes. For the first time in my life, I felt valuable, as if my existence truly meant something to someone. After the burial, when I returned home, the Sheikh said to me, "You are free now. You may choose to stay here and study this knowledge or return to your homeland. But what my wife gave you is a treasure. Cherish it." I thought to myself, to go from a laborer to the inheritor of sacred knowledge, that is no small thing. I made up my mind. I would fully study that woman's book, learn its teachings, and live by them. During those days, my passion for service and learning grew deeper than ever before. I began reading the book in earnest. Each page opened a new world for me, wonders of olive oil, secrets of herbs, and principles of health and healing, written with such clarity and care that I was left in awe. Olive oil was no longer just a food ingredient for me. It had become a trust, a secret, and a purpose. After that experience, I decided that my life would no longer be about chasing wealth or worldly success. Knowledge and service would now be my true riches. The Sheikh fulfilled every promise he made. He paid me generously and even gave me a small room in the city to live in. I called my wife and mother back in Pakistan and told them everything. They wept upon hearing the story. My mother said, "Son, Allah has rewarded your service in this life itself. Now make this knowledge your life." Within me now lived a passion for service, learning, and humility, and a new life was just beginning. All of it because of a woman the world once saw as mad or a burden, but who taught me the true power of compassion and knowledge. A few days later, the house returned to its previous silence, the kind that filled it during her life. After her passing, the entire villa felt deserted. The sheikh became even more quiet and reflective. Often he would sit with me and talk about her past. That's when I learned her real story and why she had grown so silent and distant from the world. The sheikh confessed that they were originally from Pakistan. A few years after marriage, he moved to Saudi Arabia for business and eventually settled there. In the early years, they lived together happily, but then a tragic accident changed everything. A car crash left her legs paralyzed. Though she lived on physically, her spirit was shattered. After the accident, a wall grew between husband and wife. The sheikh said, "I would stay with her for some time, then leave for Pakistan. I had responsibilities, but also selfishness. I practically imprisoned her in this house and just learned to live with her condition." Over time, she began channeling the legacy of her father, who was a renowned herbalist. She began writing the book, gathering her life experiences, remedies for diseases, and the miraculous uses of olive oil. The sheikh told me he once hired a maid to care for her, but the woman stole valuables and ran away. Sadly, he said, many caretakers came and left. They misunderstood her silence, her disability, and her occasional odd behavior as madness. Perhaps no one truly understood her pain. When I first stepped into that home, I was just another worker to her, but I never showed disgust, cruelty, or impatience. I simply obeyed her quietly, prepared her meals, gave her medicine, and ensured her comfort. I never judged her illness or silence. Slowly, she developed a strange trust in me. She gave me her knowledge, her book, and most of all, her prayers. As I read her book each day, I could clearly see her wounds and truths woven into every page. With every remedy and healing formula, she had written her personal experience. Each line was a testament to her patience, strength, and humanity. On one page, she had written, "Life made me crippled, but my father taught me that knowledge and service can never be crippled. Olive oil was my father's gift to me. In my helplessness, I made it my strength, and today, I pass that strength to you." The sheikh and I often read the book together. Many times it brought tears to our eyes. He said, "My wife was truly a great woman. I never tried to understand her heart, but now, through your service, I finally realized relationships aren't just legal or physical. The real bond is through service, sincerity, and compassion." After her passing, I could no longer feel at home in that house. The sheikh too said the home had lost its purpose. He offered me a choice. "Son, you may leave now or return to Pakistan with me. This book is your trust. Use it in the life ahead, and whatever I have, you have a right to it now because of your service." I held that book close to my chest. I knew it wasn't just a collection of herbal treatments or medicinal knowledge. It was the essence of her life, her struggle, her patience, and her wisdom. I said to him, "Your wife gave me a new purpose. I want to preserve this knowledge, use it to heal others, and turn her legacy into an ongoing charity for her forgiveness and honor." And just like that, the silent life of an Arab woman changed the entire course of mine. She, who once saw herself as a burden, gave me the knowledge and respect that redefined my existence. Now I truly understood that service, sincerity, knowledge, and prayer, these are the true treasures of life, and I received them all through her patience and her olive oil. After her passing, her memory stayed with me like a permanent light. I kept her book beside my bed, reading a few pages every night, reflecting on the deeper meaning of life. When I began studying her remedies, I realized they weren't just about healing illnesses or using herbs. Every page taught a lesson in patience, gratitude, service, and simplicity. What amazed me the most were the chapters about olive oil. In them, she included her father's advice, old observations, and even modern scientific references. She called olive oil a spiritual force and wrote, "This oil does not only heal the body, it lifts the weariness and sorrow from the soul. Whenever hardship strikes or the body grows tired, take olive oil with warm milk. It is a treasure from Allah." Behind this oil is not just nutrition, but my father's prayer and centuries of experience. Below this sentence, she had written a special prayer just for me. May Allah protect you from all illnesses, accept your service, and make this knowledge a source of honor and sustenance for you. At that moment, I made a firm decision in my heart that I would not let this knowledge go to waste. I said to the sheikh, "Now I must go. I want to return to Pakistan, study this knowledge, practice it, and use it to help others." The sheikh nodded and said, "You've won my heart with your service. The money I promised you has been fully transferred to your name. This book, this knowledge, this experience, all are your rightful reward. Go and make your life a legacy of this service." I packed my belongings, bid farewell to every corner of that bungalow, and silently recited a Fatiha for the woman who had changed my life. My journey back home was filled with a new hope and a new purpose. When I arrived in Pakistan, my mother and wife embraced me tightly. I shared with them everything that had happened. Tears flowed from my mother's eyes as she said, "My son, Allah has rewarded your patience and service right here in this world. Now use this knowledge not just for yourself, but to benefit others." Upon returning home, I spent weeks studying the book, testing its remedies, and integrating its principles into my life. I began offering free treatment to the needy in my town. The wonders of olive oil, the power of herbs, the traditional remedies, they had all become a sacred trust in my hands. Soon people from far and wide began to come. Sometimes an old man, sometimes a child, sometimes a distressed mother, all would arrive at my door sharing their pain. I would open the book, find a suitable remedy, and treat them with care. My parents and wife supported me wholeheartedly. Over time, my home was filled with blessings. Now I had the knowledge, the experience, and the service, all thanks to the woman who once sat silently in that room, whom the world misunderstood. One day, at the end of the book, I found one final handwritten note by her. "To the one who bore the weight of my pain and served me with heart, I pray that Allah grants you honor in this world and the next. If you carry this knowledge forward, I will continue to pray for you, even from my grave." Reading that line, I fell into prostration and with tears in my eyes prayed to Allah, "O Lord, forgive her and make this knowledge a means of healing, honor, and sustenance for me." With time, people began to recognize me as a traditional healer. The journey that had begun with quiet service in a lonely home now became my destiny, a path of healing, hope, and compassion. I treated every needy person as a brother, every patient as family, and every hardship with the remedies from that sacred book. Life now moved forward with a new light, new honor, and a peace I had never known before. My life had taken a new direction. Where once there was exhaustion, despair, and poverty, now there was dignity, knowledge, and service. When I began treating people in my town using the remedies from that woman's book, people were filled with both amazement and hope. Those who once saw me as a failure, unemployed, and broken, now came to me for healing and prayers. I felt a new humility within myself, a deep sense of gratitude to Allah. My wife, who once shed silent tears over our poverty, now held my hand with pride. My parents, whose faces once reflected constant worry, now smiled with peace and contentment. The atmosphere in my home had changed. There was blessing, happiness, and a spiritual calm that filled every corner. My mother often raised her hands while reading the Quran and prayed, "O Allah, just as you placed patience, service, and knowledge in my son's heart, preserve him, and let this light shine in his generations too." The greatest reward in my life was the honor and position I gained through service. Whenever I helped a patient, eased someone's pain, or gave free medicine to someone in need, I felt a profound, indescribable joy, as if that woman's prayer still walked beside me. I began cross-referencing some of the book's remedies with modern research, and soon people began to find relief from illnesses even doctors had struggled with. The benefits of olive oil, spiritual healing, and the power of herbs, these became well known in my town. People began to cite my sincerity, honesty, and humility as an example. One day, a young man came to me. His condition mirrored mine from years ago, despair in his eyes, hunger on his face, and poverty in his clothes. He said, "Brother, I can't find any work. I'm exhausted. I don't know what to do. I came to you hoping you might show me a way." Looking at him, I was reminded of the day I stood at the edge of the canal ready to end it all. I sat him down, listened to his story, and said, "Son, the real wealth isn't money or a job. The real wealth is service, knowledge, and patience. If you work hard from the heart, never lose hope in Allah, and keep your intentions pure, fate will surely open its doors for you. I took him in as an assistant at my clinic. I taught him, guided him, and with time, he too developed the same determination and faith I once found in myself. One flame had lit another. Now, my knowledge, my service, and that sacred book were no longer confined to just my home. My students began spreading this knowledge further. Many young people changed the direction of their lives because of it. At my clinic, I dedicated a special room in memory of that woman, the one who had transformed my life. In that room, I placed her book, her photograph, and the final letter she had written by hand. A lamp burns there every day, and every evening I recite Fatiha for her, because she was the one who gave me a new life. As time passed, Allah blessed me with respect, wealth, and status. But the greatest treasure I ever received was the humility that came through service and patience. Today, when I look back on my journey, I am convinced of one truth. Allah never wastes the effort of one who works sincerely. Sincerity, prayer, service, and knowledge, these are the true identity of a human being. The greatest lesson in this entire story is this: never underestimate someone who seems helpless. Never dismiss a quiet soul as useless, because sometimes it is that very silent, broken person who hands you the light that illuminates your entire future. May Allah grant that woman the highest rank in Jannah, and may He give us all the ability to carry forward her legacy of knowledge and service. And in the end, I will only say this: if you embrace service, patience, and knowledge in your life, Allah will grant you a station you never even dreamed possible.